Okay, a log landing is a place where you would stack logs to then have them transported to market. Traditionally, log landings were only next to rivers and creeks because water was the only way to transport logs. That changed in the 1800s with the invention of the Shay locomotive, which was a train that allowed for deeper penetration into the forest and for going up some steeper grades, combined with an invention called the Barnhart Loader, which was a steam-powered grapple that could pick up logs and load it. So when did that change into more modern trucks? I think around the 1920s and into the 30s and 40s. And so we're standing at what I think is a log landing here in Montour County. And this is a phenomenon I've seen in the landscape. If you film it a little bit, what you're looking at is an area that's been dug out into the ground. Doesn't look natural because it isn't. You'll often see probably the work of a bulldozer that came in and it made a low spot in the ground next to usually a pretty steep bank. And what I believe you're looking at, starting in the 1920s, they invented trucks that could handle a few logs at a time, nothing huge. In fact, some of the earliest Mack trucks that I've been researching could carry about 1,000 board feet. You know, compare that to nowadays, it's pretty common to get 5,000 board feet on a log truck. I think up top here, this flat area, this would have been the log landing. So it's probably still using horses and mules. They would have decked their logs up here. How long ago? Well, I think this is a clue. This chestnut oak is dead, but it's pushing 70, 80 years old. So that put us back in the 1940s or 50s that this site was used, and that's exactly what I would hypothesize. You would load by hand using a cant hook or a PV. A cant hook is flat on the end, a PV has a point, and you would roll your logs up onto the back of the truck, right about here. Well, let me back up a little bit. The truck would be pulled in sideways to this bank, and then you'd put some heavy-duty planks, and you'd roll your logs onto the planks, but you're not rolling uphill because your log bed would be, or your truck bed would be right about here. So you're almost parallel to the ground, which makes for loading the logs a lot more convenient. And then once you get, a few logs, a half dozen or so, depending on the size on there, you'd head out, and I'm pretty confident that that's the way out. So just a moment ago, we were metal detecting and found an old heavy-duty chain that I think conclusively proves that that's what this site is. You'd wrap chains, by the way, up and over the logs and cinch them down. That's how you'd hold the logs in place. So I met an old timer in the 1990s. I was at Jerseytown Tavern, and an old timer told me that back in the 30s and 40s he used to do this. And one day he brought in some black and white pictures in his pocket, and he showed me, and there are these log trucks loaded with logs. I said, "How did you do that?" And he said, "With a cant hook." I said, "But I don't understand." He said, "Well, you roll the logs up into the truck by hand." So folks did this locally. So again, started in the 1920s, in through the 30s, 40s, 50s, and then I think by the 1960s is when things went to what's more modern nowadays, which is you have the self-loader, which is a much larger logging truck, and it has the crane built into the truck where a man or a woman can come up and load the logs. That's called a self-loader. So watch for this out in Pennsylvania and other states. This is a log landing, and it would have gone again from the 1920s into the 50s is about the time period we're looking at. And a lot of the ones I've been finding this week, the pits are often filled with water. Now they wouldn't have been when they were being used. You know, this would have been bulldozed out. They would have used manpower to load the logs. Hey, a word or two on the bulldozers, because at first when I thought about that, I thought they wouldn't have bringing bulldozers back in the woods, but it was like a one-time job. You'd hire a guy with a bulldozer. Bulldozers invented in the 1920s. You'd pay him to come in and do a couple of these landings. Usually you can find more of these landings within a quarter mile or so of the first one. So because when they would do a timber harvest of a few hundred acres, you're going to need a few dozen of these landings. So you'd probably hire a guy with a bulldozer to come in for the day, and he'd bang out these landings for you. So that's what they are. Am I missing anything, boys? All right, that's your Pennsylvania logging history for the day. Get the whole trail home. Let me get the top of this anyway. Did I explain well?
Yeah.
That's my boot.
Dad, check up top here.
Just want to demonstrate how you roll a log with a PV or a cant hook. It's all about getting it hooked and then the leverage of the long arm allows you to roll it. So that's how you roll a log up onto a truck. This one's a little rotten, but you can see them rolling it. And again, if you had two like planks, heavy duty, like 4x4s, it would allow you to roll it up onto the truck. A PV is pointed on the end. A cant hook is flat. I was told recently that the guys who did the river logging and floated logs, they like the PVs for getting into the log jams and prying them apart. Whereas if you're just rolling logs, a cant hook works just as good. That's it.